The history of Israel's early settlement is marked by a devastating pattern: disobedience leading to destitution and repentance paving the way for divine deliverance. The story of Deborah begins during one of the most crippling consequences of this cycle, an era so defined by fear that public life had virtually ceased. For 2 punishing decades, the nation was held in thrall by the Canaanite king Jabin, whose power was personified by his brutal general Sisera. The chilling reality facing every Israelite was Sisera's absolute military superiority. He commanded a massive army, spearheaded by 900 Iron Chariots. This was not merely a large army. It represented the peak of military technology at the time, functioning as an ancient version of a tank division, fast, terrifying, and seemingly unstoppable on open ground. The chariots were the ultimate psychological weapon, forcing Israelites to abandon major roads and hide in the hills, effectively dissolving any sense of national unity or commerce. This paralysis was the bitter fruit of their turning away from God. When courage seemed a forgotten virtue and leadership was non-existent, who could possibly challenge a technological terror like Sisera? How could a divided, demoralized people find hope when their mighty men were hiding? The answer lay not in a seasoned male general, but in an unprecedented, unexpected savior, a woman named Deborah, a prophetess, judge, and the catalyst for a miraculous turnaround. Deborah's ascent was a direct challenge to the rules of her world. Imagine the audacity. In a society that reserved authority exclusively for men, she commanded the triple role of prophetess, judge, and war leader. This was less an appointment and more a divine indictment of the male leadership. Where were the brave men? The narrative is stark. They were paralyzed by fear, hiding from Sisera's 900 Iron Chariots. Deborah's famous seat, a humble palm tree, became the true functional capital of Israel, the only place left where justice and hope could be found. Her power, Deborah, was not political or military in origin, but profoundly spiritual, derived from her unwavering, crystal-clear connection to God. She stood as the nation's spiritual anchor. The 20-year oppression finally broke with a simple, yet stunningly explicit command, delivered from God through Deborah. Summon Barak, son of Abinoam. The mission was clear, definitive, and seemingly suicidal. Barak was to gather 10,000 men and lead them to Mount Tabor. The divine promise was the only guarantee God himself would personally draw Sisera and his dreaded 900 Iron Chariots to the Kishon River, where they would be delivered into Israel's hands. This plan was a test of absolute obedience over military logic. It demanded that Barak, whose name ironically means lightning, ignore the terrifying reality of the Canaanite technological advantage and trust only in the unseen intervention. However, decades of fear had hollowed out his courage. When faced with God's direct, non-negotiable command, Barak, the designated warrior, responded not with a battle cry, but with a condition of crippling doubt. If you go with me, I will go. But if you do not go with me, I will not go. This was a profound and shocking crisis of faith. Barak's demand for Deborah's physical presence was an admission that he valued the visible human reassurance of the prophetess over the invisible absolute power of the God she represented. He needed a tangible shield against the terror of the Iron Chariots, thereby undermining the divine nature of the entire campaign. His hesitation threatened to derail the entire deliverance strategy. Deborah the prophetess showed immense compassion by accepting his weakness, yet ensured the consequences of that doubt would be permanent. This pivotal exchange shifted the coming victory's focus. Barak's hesitant condition, "I will only go if you go," was not merely a failure of courage. It was the hinge upon which the entire narrative of victory would turn. In accepting his terms, Deborah acted with both grace and profound prophetic judgment. Her response became one of the most famous and unsettling pronouncements in the book of Judges. "Certainly, I will go with you, but because of the course you are taking, the honor will not be yours, for the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." This was a seismic moment for an army preparing for war. First, it stripped the intended male general of the glory that typically accompanies such a monumental triumph, the highest reward in their culture. Second, it delivered a profound insult by promising the ultimate honor to a woman, an entity completely disenfranchised from military valor. This single statement ensured that the victory could not be credited to human strength, male leadership, or military strategy. Deborah's prophecy guaranteed a triumph that would publicly testify to the Lord's power and methods. The tension on the battlefield was palpable, a profound clash between human logic and divine command. Below the slopes of Mount Tabor, Sisera's army was a terrifying sight, a massive organized force dominated by the 900 Iron Chariots that had terrorized Israel for decades. These chariots were not just metal and wood. They were the physical manifestation of Canaanite dominance, swift and unstoppable on the open plains of the Jezreel Valley. Barak's 10,000 men, armed with the fragile hope sparked by Deborah's presence, looked hopelessly outmatched. Their weapons were rudimentary. Their strategy, based on descending from the high ground, was merely an act of obedience, not military genius. As Barak led the charge, Deborah stood nearby, her voice ringing out with final, unwavering certainty. "Go, for this is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you?" Her words were the true battle standard, replacing the fear in the soldiers' hearts with the courage of faith. The Israelite forces descended, and the battle commenced. But it was abruptly decided not by the clash of spears, but by the will of the Almighty. The narrative takes a dramatic turn as the very elements of nature respond to God's command. With unnatural speed, dark clouds gathered, and the heavens unleashed a sudden catastrophic torrential downpour. This was no ordinary shower. It was a strategically timed precision strike designed to target the enemy's singular strength. The rain instantly saturated the flat, clay-rich plains near the Kishon River, transforming the battleground into a muddy quagmire. Sisera's technological advantage was instantly and fatally reversed. The heavy, thick-rimmed wheels of the 900 Iron Chariots weapons, designed for speed and intimidation, sank deep into the mire, trapping the highly mobile war machines. The chariots, once symbols of invincibility, became millstones around the necks of the Canaanites. This divine intervention led to absolute chaos. Horses panicked, the charioteers were immobilized, and the perfectly organized Canaanite battle formation dissolved into a sprawling mess of struggling men and mired equipment. This was a supernatural, irrefutable act of salvation. God had literally fought for Israel, turning the most powerful weapons of the age into useless liabilities, demonstrating definitively that no human technology or military might can withstand the Lord of hosts. Inspired by this immediate manifestation of God's power, the Israelite soldiers, now fighting with a ferocity they didn't know they possessed, descended upon the disorganized, panic-stricken enemy with swift and decisive blows. The defeat was comprehensive. Sisera abandoned his chariot and fled on foot, a solitary, mud-soaked fugitive. The battlefield had been cleared, but the prophecy of Deborah remained unfulfilled. The honor of Sisera's defeat was still owed to a woman. The mighty Canaanite general, reduced to a desperate fugitive, fled the carnage on foot, seeking refuge not with an ally, but in the camp of Heber the Kenite, whose clan maintained a fragile peace treaty with King Jabin. Sisera arrived at the tent of Jael Heber's wife, utterly exhausted, humiliated, and trusting in the perceived safety of a woman's quarters and tribal neutrality. Jael, seeing the once formidable figure, embodiment of 2 decades of terror, now pitifully drained and defeated, greeted him with deceptive warmth. "Turn aside, my lord," she invited. "Do not fear." She ushered him inside, covered him with a rug, and when he begged for water, she offered him milk, a rich, soothing drink that would hasten his deep, exhausted sleep. He gave his final command, "Stand at the door of the tent, and if anyone comes and asks you, 'Is anyone here?' say no." He believed conventions would protect him, but Jael had other divinely inspired plans. Once Sisera was in a dead milk-induced slumber, she acted with chilling, unwavering resolve. Quietly, she retrieved the tools of her domestic life, a tent peg and a workman's hammer. These simple everyday items, far removed from the grand swords and chariots of war, were about to become the instruments of prophetic justice. With a single shocking blow, Jael drove the tent peg through Sisera's temple, pinning him fatally to the ground. The general who commanded 900 Iron Chariots was killed, not by a seasoned warrior in open combat, but by the hands of an unassuming woman within the sanctuary of her tent. This was the ultimate dramatic fulfillment of Deborah's word. When Barak finally arrived, still pursuing his escaped enemy, Jael stepped out calm and composed. "Come, and I will show you the man you are looking for." He followed her inside, finding the lifeless body of Sisera, the tent peg still fixed in his skull. Jael, a non-Israelite woman, had executed the tyrant with unconventional courage. The gruesome sight inside Jael's tent was the undeniable visceral fulfillment of Deborah's prophecy. The humiliation of Sisera, the tyrant who relied on technological might, was complete, slain by a domestic tool wielded by a woman, ensuring that the honor of the day could never be claimed by the hesitant male general. With the enemy vanquished and the oppression broken, Deborah the prophetess and judge stepped forward not to claim military accolades, but to lead the nation in a transcendent act of worship. The Song of Deborah. This hymn, recorded in the Book of Judges, is one of the most ancient and powerful victory songs in the Bible, a comprehensive and poetic testament to the Lord's justice and Israel's deliverance. The song begins with a powerful call to attention. "Hear, O kings, give ear, O princes. Even I will sing to the Lord," before recounting the terrifying years of silence and fear, the time when the highways were abandoned and villages lay deserted. Deborah contrasts male paralysis with her ascent. "Until I, Deborah, arose," a mother in Israel. She praised the courage of the tribes that rallied Naphtali and Zebulun, and condemned those who stayed behind, Reuben, Gilead, Dan, and Asher, whose apathy stood in stark contrast to the divine call. Crucially, the song did not shy away from the shocking details of the battle and its resolution. Deborah extolled the heavens and the stars, fighting from their courses, confirming the supernatural nature of the torrential rain that swept away the Canaanites in the Kishon River. The climax of the song is the lavish celebratory praise reserved for Jael. "Most blessed of women be Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. She struck Sisera, she crushed his head, she shattered and pierced his temple." The song deliberately juxtaposes the image of Sisera's mother, anxiously waiting for his delayed return, imagining him dividing the spoils with the stark, fatal reality of his death under Jael's hand. This deliberate literary contrast serves as a powerful reminder of God's complete and dramatic reversal of fortune. The Song of Deborah thus became more than just a hymn. It was a permanent artistic record of the victory, an educational tool to ensure that future generations would never forget that their deliverance was secured not through their own strength, but through the unconventional power of God, who honors faith, courage, and obedience wherever he finds it. The victory at the Kishon River and the final ignominious end of Sisera brought about the ultimate consequence of divine obedience: 40 years of uninterrupted peace for Israel. This period of rest, stability, and restoration was the lasting legacy of Deborah's leadership and the faith she ignited. The story is a profound, timeless theological statement, serving as a powerful counter-narrative to human skepticism and reliance on technology or conventional power structures. It teaches that God does not require flawless heroes. He honors obedience even when it is hesitant, barak and courage even when it is found in the most unlikely and marginalized individuals, Deborah and Jael. The central value add for the modern audience endures. God's plan always prevails, often, through the unexpected. Deborah's life dismantles the societal lie that authority is limited by gender or social standing. She proved that when male leadership failed due to fear, a woman guided solely by a clear, direct connection to the divine could mobilize an army, pronounce judgment, and secure freedom. Her legacy encourages us to challenge our own internal doubts and external limitations. The story of Deborah is not just ancient history. It remains a permanent call to action for every believer. The story of Deborah is not just a tale of ancient history. It is a permanent call to action, urging every believer to embrace their God-given purpose, regardless of the odds, the technological terror, the modern equivalent of the Iron Chariots, or the prevailing social expectations. It remains a stunning, vibrant testimony that those who love the Lord will rise like the sun in its strength, leaving behind an inheritance of faith and peace,